Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jimmy Johnson, the Fungicide Product Manager for Bayer Environmental Science. This afternoon, we're going to have the third in a series of 6 for 2011 on Bayer Beyond the Basics, utilizing stress guard formulation technology to help manage turf and eliminate stress with Dr. Joe Vargas. To start things off, as I said, your phones have been muted. We will be taking questions and answers throughout the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, Dr. Vargas will be answering and addressing all of your questions. You can see at the bottom there, if you have any tech support issues, if it's with audio, you can text it in there in the Q&A panel and it'll be addressed. Otherwise, you can call the 866 number you see down in the last point there. And the last thing there will be, if you have logged in as a group, you need to make sure and let Veronica know the number of attendees if you are looking to get points through GCSAA education or accolades points. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Vargas, who is Professor of Botany and Plant Pathology at Michigan State University. Dr. Vargas is well published, been in the industry for, around 40 years, and is well known internationally. So with that, Dr. Vargas, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Today we are going to talk about summer stresses that are on the turfgrass plant. Not the summer stress that you go under, but the summer stress that the plant goes under. And to start with, we have this thing called summer stress syndrome, which originally started out being summer bentgrass stress decline, sorry about that, and soon realized that all grasses, not just bentgrass, all cool season grasses go under stress when we have the summer. So we're going to talk about some of them stresses and then how to manage it culturally, chemically, and also the importance of fertilizer. So with that, some of the causes, of course, are pretty well known, like poor soil conditions. You have compaction, you have lack of oxygen in the soil, you have poor drainage, lack of oxygen. And as you know, oxygen is important in the uptake of nutrients in water, and if you don't have that, you're not going to get the proper uptake of nutrients in water. With compaction, you're going to have poor drainage, which is going to push the oxygen out of the soil, and the plant's going to be incapable of taking up nutrients in water. And one of the important things is with sand, most of you sand top dress is having the proper particle size and distribution, and also shape. We're finding out that using more rounded sands is tended to lead to unstable turf during the summertime when the roots are short, and along with this, a lot of shearing of the roots, which is particularly damaging to creeping bentgrass. Here we can see a picture where the green was built with a finer sand, not much oxygen in there, developing a black layer. And now the new superintendent is trying to use a sand that has better particle size distribution and eventually building his way out of the black layer situation. Other things that lead to summer stress are lack of air movement. Plant cools itself by a process called transpiration. For transpiration to work properly, you need air movement across the leaf so the water evaporates, and as the water or moisture coming out of the stomates evaporates, it cools off the surface of the plant. Lack of morning sun. Why is morning sun more important in the summertime than afternoon sun? Because photosynthesis is temperature dependent, and once the temperatures get above 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees centigrade, photorespiration exceeds photosynthesis, and you don't make any carbohydrates, and you have actually a net loss in carbohydrates from the plant. Shade, any kind of shade, even in the afternoon, particularly in the cooler parts of the season, the plant just doesn't have the same number of hours it would to photosynthesize and make all of the nutrients and products that it needs. Tree root competition. If the trees are near enough to the turf area where it's a green, a tee, or a fairway, tree roots are always going to outcompete grass roots for nutrients and moisture. Again, it's important that they not be there. If you can't remove the tree, you should at least be able to prune the roots of the tree. And then we have the problem with salt in the water, which is becoming more of a problem as people happen to use tertiary water or recycled water in order to water their golf course because of environmental concerns. A plant takes up moisture by a process known as osmosis. It works because the salt content inside the root hair is greater than the salt content in the free water outside the root hair. And as the water becomes more salty in the area outside the root hair, the more difficult it is for the root hair to take up water. And when finally the salt content outside the root hair becomes greater than the salt content inside the root hair, then the water is actually going to flow out of the plant, resulting in the plant wilting and dying. So it's important to try and use as salt-free water as possible. And then we have this thing called photorespiration, which by the term means respiration that takes place in the light. And as I already said, it occurs when the air temperatures get above 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees centigrade. We'll talk more about that later in the presentation. You know, architects love to show pictures of greens surrounded by trees because they know that members just love trees. It's almost like they become sacred cows. You can see here a green that's down about 90 feet and completely surrounded by trees. And, you know, I always say in a situation like that, the dear Lord couldn't grow grass, but they somehow or other expect you to do it. But it becomes almost impossible in that type of an environment, particularly when you get in the warm weather of summer. You know, how are you going to grow grass in an environment like that? How are you going to grow grass in an environment like that? You're not. It's just not enough sunlight, and particularly enough morning sun in this case. Again, I don't care how many aerifier holes you punch into this green in the summertime, and you're not going to have healthy turf until the trees that are shading this green, and particularly shading it in the morning, are removed. Oh, here we go. Yeah, let's put a practice putting green here. But gee, don't remove that tree. After all, it's such a specimen tree. It's just crazy what goes on out there when it comes to trees. We'll put a practice putting green here, but again, another great